We're going to go on and start because time and the astronauts wait for no one. The downlink is going to begin promptly at 11:20, and we have a number of things to do between now and then. And I'll recognize myself first for an opening statement. Good morning and welcome to today's event with two American astronauts direct from the International Space Station. Through satellite communications, we will speak with NASA astronauts Steve Swanson and Reid Wiseman on board the International Space Station. The station is in orbit 260 miles above us and is traveling at 17,000 miles per hour. For over 13 years, NASA astronauts have lived and worked on the space station, perhaps the greatest engineering achievement in human history. The space station is roughly the size of a football field, including the end zones. It has more livable space than a 5-bedroom house, along with science laboratories that will allow 6 astronauts to live and work there. The astronauts today include 2 Americans, 3 Russians, and 1 European. Steve Swanson and Reid Wiseman will speak to us today from the Destiny Lab, where they are conducting scientific experiments on weightlessness in space. Aboard the space station, we can develop new materials and medicines that will make their way into the commercial products that we use here on Earth. The technology spin-offs from America's space program have significantly impacted our economy and improved our way of life, from the microchips in our computers to lightweight metal alloys used in our cars to touchpad screens on our iPads. More importantly, the station is a place to test new technologies that could assist future astronauts when they venture to Mars and other moons and planets throughout our solar system. Space inspires future generations to dream big and work hard. Astronauts serve as role models who inspire students to study science, math, and engineering. They also encourage scientists to develop the innovations that keep our economy strong and ensure that America remains globally competitive. But space is about much more than the tangible benefits of the technology spin-offs that improve our lives here on Earth. Our accomplishments in space remind Americans some of our greatest accomplishments. Many Americans remember where they were 45 years ago last Sunday when Apollo 11 landed on the moon. The first footprints on the moon's surface were made by Americans. The U.S. should always lead the way in space exploration. Space amazes us and spurs our curiosity about what's out there. It also inspires us and makes us want to push our mental and physical boundaries and encourages us to seek answers to timeless questions about life, our existence, and the meaning of it all. We can thank NASA, both at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, and here at their headquarters in Washington, D.C., for their hard work in making this downlink possible. Also, after today's event, there will be a showcase of ISS hardware and research presented by NASA, the Center for the Advancement of Science and Space, and the National Space Biomedical Research Institute. These organizations are leading the way in microgravity research and utilization of the International Space Station. It will be next door in room 2325 down the hall. So please go take a look and listen to the roundtable discussion that will be held. I'll now recognize the ranking member, the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Johnson, for her opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and let me welcome our audience and also welcome our former chairman of this committee that just came in, Mr. Gordon. I'm looking forward to hearing from our astronauts today about life on the International Space Station and the challenges and opportunities they face. I hope that we can follow today's event with a formal hearing at a later date that will allow a more comprehensive examination of the International Space Station and its utilization in support of exploration, as well as for basic and applied research. As you know, this past weekend, the 45th anniversary of the first humans landing on the moon. It was a bold achievement, as was the more recent assembly of the International Space Station. The success of both of these ventures depended on the dedication and bravery of past and present members of the astronaut corps. In spite of the risk, they willingly faced the name of science and exploration. I hope that all members join me in saluting them. While the road to the completion was a long one, the International Space Station stands as one of the emerging marvels of modern age and a testament to American ingenuity and perseverance. In addition, the international partnership of the International Space Station has stood the test of time, providing a foundation for future long-term space partnerships. The International Space Station has great inspirational value for our young people, and you see many of them here. As evidenced by the intense interest of our students in talking to the orbiting astronauts and in developing science projects that may fly on the station. I have lots of that interest from our district. Yet the stark reality is that the International Space Station is a perishable commodity, and the future is now. In terms of utilizing this unique facility, while I welcome the President's proposal to extend the International Space Station operations to at least 2024, we need to make sure that the years that are available are used effectively to answer the research and engineering questions that can only be answered on the International Space Station. I'd like to make one more point. If we want to ensure that the International Space Station carries out the needed research and technology activities in a timely and productive fashion, we have to be willing to make the needed investments. The International Space Station research budget is stagnating, and the agency's life and microgravity sciences budget has been cut deeply over the past decade. The appropriated funding for biological and physical research in fiscal year 2014 accounts for less than 3% of the total International Space Station funding. Clearly, this is a situation Congress can and must rectify. In closing, I look forward to today's downlink and the opportunity to hear from our astronauts. I thank you and yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, and I'm going to introduce our astronauts now. The first is astronaut Steve Swanson, who joined NASA as a flight engineer on the shuttle training aircraft in 1998. Later that year, he was selected as a mission specialist. This is Dr. Swanson's third space flight. He launched earlier this year along with 2 Russian cosmonauts. All 3 are expected to return to Earth in September. Dr. Swanson received his Bachelor of Science in Engineering Physics at the University of Colorado, a Master's of Applied Science and Computer Systems from Florida Atlantic University, and his doctorate in Computer Science from Texas A&M University. Astronaut Reid Wiseman began his career in the military as a naval aviator. Following his initial training, he made 2 deployments to the Middle East, supporting Operations Southern Watch, Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. Commander Wiseman was selected for the astronaut program in 2009 while he was deployed to the Middle East. You may recognize Commander Wiseman from the many photos that he tweets from the International Space Station. His Twitter account, Reid, has over 160,000 followers. Commander Wiseman earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Computer and Systems Engineering from the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and a Master of Science degree in Systems Engineering from Johns Hopkins University. Let me go now to sort of the mechanics as to how this is going to work. And first of all, let me thank the members who are present here for their interest and many of them for their participation as well. We will do our best to move through questions and answers as efficiently as possible. Questions for the astronauts today will alternate between the majority and minority. Each side will have a total of 10 minutes, and members recognized will have 2 minutes each. And let me say, to the extent that members can be brief, we won't go over that 2-minute limit per member, and then all members or more members will be able to ask questions. Otherwise, there will be fewer members. There's a hard, fast 20-minute total, and that's why there's only 10 minutes on a side. I have participated in downlinks in the past, so I will forego my question, and hopefully this will allow more time for another member. We have a few moments before we start the downlink process, and as a reminder, when you speak to the astronauts, press your talk button, wait a couple of seconds, and then speak. You have to wait for the transmission to get to the station and back. Once you are finished with your question, please turn the microphone off and wait for a response. This is so that the astronauts do not get feedback on their side. Most importantly, please do not interrupt the astronauts while they are speaking. The delay in transmission does not permit fluid back and forth conversations. So it must be nice to be an astronaut and not be interrupted. All right, we've now come to a time where we are going to wait just a few minutes for the downlink to begin, so we're just going to have a pause here. This is dangerous to allow so much quiet with so many members here. Maybe I should say no one's going to be recognized for improvisations or jokes, but so we'll just have to be patient and wait for the downlink. And again, thank not only the members for being here, but it's nice to see a full house here in the audience as well. This is a special occasion. I don't think this has been done in Congress for many, many years, and it's just it's a nice thing to witness firsthand. It's historic in lots of ways, and again, I do think the International Space Station is probably our greatest engineering feat, and we'll see it and the astronauts in action today. And with that, we'll just be quiet for another few minutes.
Mr. Chairman, maybe former Chairman Ralph Hall.
This is exactly what I was worried about.
Maybe former Chairman Ralph Hall can entertain us with a few stories from the great state of Texas.
Well, you couldn't give me enough time. Thank you, Ralph. We'll wait just a minute. Okay. Okay. I need time. We are about 4 minutes away. We will not do a countdown for the last 10 seconds, however.
Station Houston on 2. We're about 2 minutes away from the event. And Reid, we're good with the lighting. No adjustments are necessary. Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Oh, there they are.
Stand by, Swanee. We did not pick that up on the mic.
Tell me when to say what I need to say.
Battery's low.
How many does it take, Swanee? Dude, it had 3 bars.
I don't know, man.
What was the last? What was it we just heard? I didn't hear.
Houston, we are now ready for the event.
Outstanding. House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. This is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Smith, how do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear.
Okay, that is great. The gentleman from California, Mr. Rohrbacher, will be recognized for a quick question.
This is Congressman Dana Rohrbacher, and I appreciate this opportunity to ask you a direct question. And I'm sure you may have seen the movie, but Sandra Bullock just had a movie called Gravity, and it dealt with the whole idea of space debris. And I was wondering if you might be able to give us an understanding of the challenge of space debris, how the space station deals with it, and if there's some other challenges like that that we may not be thinking about here that we have to deal with before we build a new station in space in the years ahead.
It's a good question, Congressman. Yes, we do have to worry about space debris up here. As a matter of fact, a couple nights ago, we had to do a debris avoidance maneuver when we realized that there was going to be a piece of debris close to our path. So luckily, Mission Control has a good program set up, so when they see that, they go ahead and execute it, and within a few hours, we're out of harm's way. And we have people on the ground who monitor that for us, and they know where everything is as for where the debris is and where we are, and they can track it and keep us safe.
The gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Johnson, ranking member of this committee, is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and greetings to Commander Wiseman and Dr. Swanson. It's a lot of excitement on this end watching you. I'd like both of you to comment on the aspects of the International Space Station program that's most important in enabling human space exploration beyond the Earth orbit.
Oh, I don't want to take your entire day up. I could talk about this subject forever. Really, it's getting humans into low Earth orbit and having us live up here right now for 6 months at a time. And in just a little over a year, we'll have Scott Kelly up here for an entire year. And it's all the things that happen to the human body and also what our spacecraft needs to provide to us, like oxygen, to breathe, water to drink, all of the food, the supplies, and just running this machine through its paces over 6 months or even a year at a time. That's what we're going to need when we go onward to Mars and spend 2 or 3 years in space. So we need to test all this stuff now on the space station so that in a decade or so we can head on to Mars and have a successful journey.
The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Hall, is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you for linking our committee to these two astronauts, Commander Wiseman and Dr. Swanson. I remember the House floor debate on June 23, 1993, in this committee, in this room, when this committee came within one vote of killing the space station that Congressman Markey had fought for forever. Our argument made on behalf of the space station was the importance of providing something tangible that our children can dream about and then aim their education, their careers towards. So I'll just ask a simple question. How do you think the space station has inspired young people and can give us some examples of efforts on the space station to engage young people and inspire them to pursue STEM education? What would you say to be the space station's greatest legacy? I yield back.
Oh, I do agree with you tremendously about the STEM program. Matter of fact, one of the things I did before I got here was work on spheres with students in the local high school. And that's what we do, it's an experiment we have up here. And the kids themselves get to program the spheres, satellites that float around here, and they have competitions. And I just saw it on the kids' faces when they got to have their program run on the station. They got so enthused about science and technology. It was fantastic.
The gentlewoman from Maryland, Ms. Edwards, is recognized.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much. I have to tell you, I am so excited. I wish I could be you when I grow up. My question and greetings to Reid Wiseman, a fellow Marylander. You know, we'll package some freeze-dried crab cakes for you up there. I wonder if you could tell us. I got that signal. I wonder if you could tell us though the importance of the work that you do and how you were inspired to join the space program. What inspired you? Because I think it is really a challenge for us to figure out what inspires the next generation of explorers.
That's a great question, and I think back to my childhood, and certainly it was when the space shuttle was just being developed and launched back in 1981. I was around 6 years old at the time, and I definitely remember a 747 flying over Maryland, and I was in Towson with my parents. We had gone up to the top of a hill for the simple act of watching a space shuttle fly over on the back of a 747 as they were transporting it, and that image is burned into my mind. And that probably started the course that I was on to become not only a Navy pilot, test pilot, and then an astronaut. So to me, we never know, as adults, we never know that little thing that's going to spark the imagination of a child's mind. And for me, it was a simple airplane with a space shuttle flying. All right, that's not simple, but it was that simple act of being with my parents, and that's what sparked my imagination. And so as much as we can from up here and NASA on the ground to reach out to kids and just expose them to this world, this STEM world that's in motion, I think you never know when you're going to spark their imagination, and I'm sure that we're doing it every day.
The gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Palazzo, is recognized.
Hey, Reid and Steve, thanks for talking to us today. Hopefully the chairman of the full committee will allow us to have a congressional trip to the space station in the near future. I have a question for you from one of my constituents in South Mississippi. Suzanne would like to know, how do you deal with the incredible solitude for the length of your respective missions?
That is an interesting question. Each person probably does it a little differently. One of the things we like to do, I think, that helps keep us calm and motivated at the same time is look out the window on our beautiful planet. When we have free time, we always go over to this window we have called a cupola. It's basically like the glass-bottom boat of our ship, and we look down on Earth, and it's fantastic. And that's what keeps us going, I think, just looking at our beautiful planet.
The gentleman from California, Mr. Peters, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, gentlemen. I had a question for you for our committee. We struggle a lot with how to maintain the country's lead in science. I wondered if you could give us your perspective on how important space exploration and research is to maintaining our nation's lead in science.
Well, certainly it's right at the cutting edge, and this is just one of our many pieces, I guess, in our overall U.S. portfolio of leading this technological revolution that we're living day to day. And so I don't know, right here just off our screen to the right, there's the arm of Robonaut, and Robonaut is hanging out. We just had him out last night to do some upgrades, and we'll bring it out and get it in full operation here, maybe even with a set of legs down the road. So the work we're doing up here is right on the cutting edge, but that's just one small piece across our entire country of what's going on. And a lot of it is thanks to government funding and pumping money into this research that's critical for our nation, not just 5 years down the road, but 50 and 100 years down the road to stay on the cutting edge.
The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Brooks, is recognized.
Dr. Swanson, Commander Wiseman, hi, I'm Mo Brooks from Alabama's 5th District, the home of the Marshall Space Flight Center. As a child, I grew up feeling the ground shake as the Saturn V rocket was tested nearby, and I vividly remember Apollo 11 when Neil Armstrong descended from the lunar module declaring one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The Apollo program was American exceptionalism at its best. It made us all proud to be Americans. My question is, what mission should America's space program next embark on to be the next giant leap for mankind?
Yes, I believe we should get ourselves to Mars. I know it's a difficult road ahead to get there, but I believe we can do it. And this is one of the first blocks that we have to do is learn how to live in space and recycle everything we need to, from water, air, everything we need to do, grow our own food, all that kind of stuff, so we can reduce the amount of supplies with us, create a robust system. And right here we're starting it off. We probably have to do a few other steps before we get there, but I think going to Mars is our main goal.
The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Clark, is recognized.
Thank you. It is great to be here. I have some questions from the Compass Summer Program students in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They submitted over 40 questions, so I'll be quick. From Dante, how do you pack? Do you bring a suitcase, and what's the temperature? From Chloe, what fuel do you use to support the space shuttle? And from Luke, has anyone had a birthday, and if so, how did you celebrate?
Okay, so we pack in a very, very small suitcase. It's about that big. We get about 1.5 kilograms. The fuel that we use, well, for our rocket ship, we basically use kerosene and oxygen to get up here. And then once we're on the space station, we have a hypergolic fuel mix that we use to keep us here, but we don't have to burn our engines very often. And then we did have a Russian crewmate who had a birthday, and right behind the camera we have a dinner table there in Node 1, and we all gather around that table, all 6 of us, and we share U.S. food, European food, Russian food, some of our juices, some of the Russian teas are very nice, and we just join together and have a really great evening. Unfortunately, I don't think there were any presents to unwrap, but Sasha, I think he was happy enough, so it was a great event.
The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Posey, is recognized.
Dr. Swanson and Commander Wiseman, sometimes it's hard for Americans to understand why human space exploration is so important. Can you take a moment to explain how the work you're doing now on the International Space Station benefits Americans? What are you up to?
I think there are a few different ways to look at that question. One, we are doing research right now on our scientific aspect. We do from burning new ways to learn how actual fire works in the details part of it. We do medical research up here. We've just, through station research, we've come up with ways to get chemotherapy to the target areas of the body more effectively. Just one of an example. The other thing you have to look at is that humans are meant to explore, I believe, and this is one path that we need to take. And now we're starting off it, and this fulfills that idea, I think, for our not just the whole race of humans. And that's one thing we need to do. And the other aspect, I believe this is a really good investment. A lot of spin-off technologies come out of this. It creates economy. It's good for the economy. It creates money for our country, and it creates a better world for all of us.
The gentleman from Washington, Mr. Kilmer, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being with us. I have 2 quick questions that came from the young gentleman behind me here. One is just trying to get a sense more of how the space station plays into the effort to go to Mars, and a little bit more specific about what the utility is of the space station. Then he also wants to know, as we look out into this century, what's on the horizon? What other new frontiers do you think we're going to visit? And he also wants to know, how many other planets are we going to discover? Is that right? All right.
Well, let's start with the end question. How many planets? Limitless. It just depends on how good our sensors get in our lifetimes as to how many we're going to discover. Perhaps every time you look up at night at any star, you got to think there's a solar system around that star. So it just blows my mind, I know. For the space station, and how does this play into our long-duration missions? If we're going to go to Mars, we're going to set out on a 3+ year journey. And if you have one major system break without spares on that journey, and that could be your own human body, your heart, your muscles, your bones, that could be your environmental control system, that could be your engines, your solar arrays, any piece of that puzzle falls apart, and now you've lost your mission to Mars. So this is the test bed. This is where we start the fundamental blocking and tackling of this challenge to get to Mars. And I think that research is being done right now, and we're seeing very successful results. Our water balance is almost at 90%, so we recycle our urine into drinking water. We recycle water into oxygen. We have a really amazing regenerative system up here, and it's proving extremely effective, and we're working on reliability. That's another step in that quest. And I hope that covers enough of your questions, sir.
The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Stockman.
Thank you for having this broadcast today. As you're my constituents, I appreciate what you're doing. I'm also proud of our country and our support of you, but some of you may know that up here it's not universal support, which I think is a mistake. And what would you, if you were me, what would you tell my colleagues why they should be supportive of your efforts and why we should vote 3 times the amount of money that we're supporting right now? Or 4 times, I don't care.
I would be happy with twice, but that's a good question. That's a really good question, really, because, again, it goes back to what do we provide for the taxpayer. And I do think, we provide research and development. That's what we get out of this. We get new products, new ideas, new science, new research, which always helps the country in the future, maybe 10, 15 years down the road. And again, that creates new companies, which does, again, goes better for the economy. We get that we inspire the new generation, which hopefully gets them to be productive and help out and make our country stronger. And we then are explorers, which again help the whole human race. I would try to go with those points.
The gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell.
Hello, and my questions today come from the Bay Area, and I have 3 young aspiring astronauts with questions. Shay Daly of San Ramon, Phoebe Bruns of Castro Valley, and Julia Warren of Castro Valley. And the first question is an easy one for Commander Wiseman, and that is, what is your favorite food in space? And also for Dr. Swanson, the question is, do you think one day we'll encounter life from another planet?
You go first.
Okay, I am a food lover, and but there is one particular food that they know when they open the desserts box. All chocolate pudding cake goes directly to Reid Wiseman's locker, and so I am hoarding chocolate pudding cake. I cannot get enough of this stuff. I tried it on Earth, and I didn't really like it that much, but there's something about this cake up here that I'm in love with. So I'll pass it over to Dr. Swanson for the follow-on.
For the follow-on question, I have to say yes. I mean, that's just such endless, as Reid pointed out, as you look up, there's so many solar systems out there, so many planets, so many possibilities. I figure that it just has to be somewhere, and sometime it will happen.
The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Schweikert, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a Texan on my staff wants me to say howdy. In your experience so far, what have you found that has surprised you on what's robust, has held up quite well on the space station, and what have you found that is fragile that you see we're going to have to do future re-engineering of?
Yeah. So I would lead that off, sir, with this is my first space flight, and I've known the space station for many, many years. We're into our 5,000th plus day of ops up here, and one of the first things that struck me when I arrived is I expected to see an aging system. I expected it to be, well, I don't know, from the TV, maybe it does look messy to you, but every one of these wires has a purpose. And when I got up here, I realized this is a brilliant laboratory. It's in overall amazing shape. It's been very well cared for, and I think it's basically a testament to the engineering that went in, the robustness of the design, that here we've been operating 5,000 days, and this thing really looks like a brand new machine up here. Very impressive to me from that aspect. Some things that aren't quite as reliable, the things that have surprised me a little bit, is you really get to see how quickly technology on Earth develops when you come up here. This was developed in the 80s and 90s, and really you do see Ethernet cables running all around the outside because we didn't necessarily have that technology when they built it. We just flew up some tablets, and I mean, there's a device that a year ago I hardly even knew, and now at home I can barely live without. And so just building on these technologies as we go over time has been somewhat of a surprise. You can kind of see the evolution of technology up here. And so that's something in future designs, I don't even know how you account for that, but it's something we'll have to look at.
The gentlewoman from Connecticut, Ms. Esty, is recognized probably for the last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The students of Waterbury, Connecticut, home of Rick Mastracchio, want to know what they can best do to become astronauts of the future.
Well, of course, it always goes with study hard. You have to do well in school. That's a given. And also, it's find something that you're really passionate about in life. Of course, it helps if it's science and technology or engineering to get this job. But you find an area in there that you're passionate about, do it well, enjoy it, and that will show when you go and try to become an astronaut. And that's what they're really looking for, somebody who's passionate about the things they do.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. The astronauts are out of time. We want to thank you both for spending 20 minutes with us today. Appreciate all your answers to the questions. We look forward to supporting you in the future. We'll talk again.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. That concludes our event.
Thank you,
Just
Chairman
a-
Smith and committee members.
There we
Station,
go. Just a reminder, please go to room 2325 down the hall for the showcase on the ISS hardware and the research presented by NASA. And thank you all again for being here today. This was a special event.